Today's story is about a killer who hides murdered victims' bodies by hiding them in plain sight and turning them into everyday household products. Starting back in the year of 1894 and in the country of Italy, a woman by the name of Leonarda Nicoli was born. As an adult, she snuck off and married a man that her mother extremely disapproved of. Leonarda's mother, being involved in witchcraft, placed a curse on her for her disobedience. Now cursed and disowned by her family, Leonarda and her husband, Raffaele, decided to move to a city by the name of Lauria. Blaming her mother's curse, this married couple fell on hard financial times, so Leonarda became a thief. She was eventually arrested for her crimes and sentenced to prison. Spending years in prison, she became depressed and lost weight from not eating regularly. Eventually being released, she and her husband moved to another town to escape the curse and to get a fresh start. Everything was going good for some time. They even worked and saved to buy a home. Her mother's curse seemed to return and an earthquake hit, destroying their home. This earthquake also destroyed their hope of having a decent life together. They took what little money they had and moved again to another distant town and opened up a small convenience store. Worried about how this new life would turn out, Leonarda went to see a fortune teller in order to hear some good news. But the prophet informed her of more bad news to come. She told Leonarda that someday soon she will have many children, but all of them will die prematurely. Shortly after, Leonarda became pregnant and had 3 miscarriages. Now paranoia sets in and it started messing with her mind. She then went to see a palm reader for a way to break this curse, but none was given. As a matter of fact, this seer gave more bad news that she wouldn't be able to avoid, which will also come true in her future. Leonarda repeatedly became pregnant and eventually had an additional 14 pregnancies. Of those, 10 of the children died young, just like the fortune teller prophesied. Leonarda became overly protective of her remaining 4 children throughout their youth. The children were sheltered and prevented from going anywhere without her or their father. She didn't trust anyone around her children. This grew tiresome to the children, so much in fact that they yearned to become adults in order to escape their mother's influence. 1939, when World War II started, Leonarda's favorite son, Gillespie, joined the military in order to distance himself from his mother's overbearing nature. Leonarda was terrified of the thought of losing her son in a senseless war, so she pleaded with Gillespie and told him about the prophecies. This he ignored and he went to war anyway. Leonarda was determined to make the ultimate sacrifice in order to protect her favorite son by any means necessary. Leonarda was well liked in the community. She not only owned and ran a local store, she also professed to be a matchmaker. A middle-aged woman by the name of Faustina really wanted a husband and family of her own, but she hadn't been able to find her prince. Fearful of not being able to have children due to her age, she was willing to pay any fee for Leonarda's service. Leonarda told her that she knows a man who lives in a distant town of Pola that is handsome and also looking for a single, attractive woman who is serious about getting married and having a family. Leonarda told him about Faustina and he was very interested in her. Leonarda told Faustina that if she were really interested in him, she would need to do several things immediately for this to work. The first was to pay her matchmaking services up front. Second was to write several notes and postcards to her family and friends so that they wouldn't become worried that Faustina had left the area to get married. And the last was not to tell anyone about her services and what she planned on doing for her. After completing the task, Leonarda instructed Faustina to pack some clothes for her trip and return to her home the following day, ready to leave by train. Faustina returned to Leonarda's home the following day with her bags filled with clothes and her heart filled with enthusiasm. Faustina was allowed to enter and was offered some tea and biscuits to snack on while she waited. When Faustina turned her back to adjust the luggage she was carrying, she was immediately chopped in the back of her head with an axe, killing her instantly. But those who have weak stomachs, this is the part that you might want to skip. Leonarda was very descriptive with the methods she used to kill and dispose of the bodies. After the killing, Leonarda then dragged Faustina's body into the walk-in closet and began to hack the dead woman into 9 individual compact pieces. During the mutilation process, The blood of the dead woman was captured in several buckets for later use. The 9 pieces of human remains were placed into large containers filled with caustic soda. Caustic soda, for those who aren't familiar, is used to liquefy organic matter. The body parts were dissolved into a brown mush substance. They were then transported in buckets by Leonardo and then poured into the local latrine. The blood that was collected in buckets was allowed to dry and harden over the course of several days. Then the blood was ground up into a fine dust and mixed in a pan with eggs, milk, flour, chocolate, and sugar. Leonardo then baked the ingredients until it formed a cake. She then gave away, sold, and ate most of the cake that consisted of the remains of Faustina. Over the course of several weeks, Leonardo strategically sent the letters, cards, and notes that Faustina pre-wrote before her murder to Faustina's friends and family members. This was used to distract them from questioning the disappearance of Faustina. This plan worked so well that Leonardo began to plan for her next victim. Francesca was the name of the next victim of Leonardo. Francesca was in need of a well-paying job. She was told by Leonardo that several business owners who happened to be friends of hers could assist Francesca in her job search if she were willing to relocate. Francesca was instructed what to do by Leonardo, and unfortunately, she met the same fate as Faustina. The third and final victim, Leonardo had a new recipe she wanted to try out on her. A woman by the name of Virginia was looking for a job much like Francesca. Francesca was given the same instructions as the first two. The date of her departure, Leonardo killed her in her home and chopped the body up into 9 pieces, but this time the body parts were placed in pots. They were then brought to a boil until the skin and body fat melted. Afterwards, a bottle of cologne was added to the melted skin and body fat to minimize the stench. Next, the creamy substance was separated from the pot and made into bars of body soap. The soap was sold and given away to the unsuspecting public. Leonardo then sent out pre-written letters and cards to Virginia's family and friends, but it was not well received. The family and friends of Virginia did not believe that she would just leave them without explaining the situation or at least saying goodbye. The authorities were notified, and it was determined that Virginia was last seen entering Leonardo's home before her disappearance. Leonardo was arrested for an investigation. The police believed that her son was also somehow involved, so they had plans to arrest him. This is when Leonardo chose to confess to killing all 3 women in order to protect her son, unbeknownst to him. Leonardo believed that if she were to sacrifice others on behalf of her son, he would be spared from his mother's curse. Leonardo proudly explained in explicit detail how she tricked, killed, and how she disposed of each victim. Leonardo told officers that she spoke with a palm reader, and she was told that her future was inescapable, and eventually she would end up arrested and in an insane asylum. So Leonardo believed that she had nothing to lose by trying to save her son. Leonardo was tried, found guilty, and sentenced to 30 years in prison and placed in an insane asylum. She died in 1970, ending her mother's curse. If you enjoy more stories such as these, click on one of the suggested videos above. God bless and stay safe.